Hey everyone, let's talk about raster graphics. This may be a new term to some of you. There are actually two types of digital graphic files, and the one we'll talk about in this lecture is raster. Raster graphics consist of pixels. If you take one of the most common resolutions, which is 1080p, there are actually 2,073,600 pixels just in a 1080p image. That's a lot of pixels. Now, to form an image, of course, each pixel would need to be a different color. And then the pixels would need to be arranged like a puzzle to complete that image. So in a traditional 1080p image, you'll have over 2 million pixels, all of varying colors, arranged to form some sort of image. So now that we understand the basics of raster images, where are they used? Here's a small list for you. They're used in desktop backgrounds, images on websites, pictures from a digital camera, let's say, screenshots. Whenever you take a screenshot in a game or just on your desktop, the computer simply saves the pixels that are currently displayed on your screen into an image format. Now, there are a bunch of raster image file formats available. There's BMP, GIF. You'll see a lot of animations in GIF files. There's IMG, JPG, PNG, PSD, which is for Photoshop, and there's many, many more file formats. Too many to list here. Here's a few pros and cons when it comes to raster images. One of the pros is that they're widely compatible. You don't need a special application to view a raster file. Another pro is that they can support complex pictures with vibrant colors. And that is the reason why in digital photography you'll normally see pictures in a raster file format. Now, one of the cons with raster image files, and I would say the main con, is limited scalability. Now, what I mean by that is if you start with a lower resolution picture, it's really difficult to increase the resolution without reducing the quality of the image. And we'll get into resolution in the next few slides. Another con that I'll mention is that the files can become quite large. If you're working with a 4K image, that's over 8 million pixels. That's a lot of data, and that's going to be quite a large image depending on how complex it is. Resolution is a term that probably most of you heard before. I'm going to demonstrate the differences between a high resolution image and a low resolution image. On the screen, I have an artistic image of a blue sky, the sun, and a cloud. This version was actually exported to a raster file format from a vector image, and the resolution is 1920 by 1261. 1920 refers to the width, and 1261 refers to the height. And that makes sense because the width is larger than the height, and that's closer to a normal widescreen resolution, the most common being 1920 by 1080 or 1080p. Now notice the image doesn't look as good. It's not as distinct. It's pixelated, which means that it's distorted and kind of blurry in a way. Now let's zoom in. Ooh, that looks even worse. Now you'll see this effect when you take an image from the web and zoom in on it. If it's not a high enough resolution, it's going to become pixelated. And again, pixelated just means that the individual pixels are becoming more distinct, whereas before they were more subtle and pleasing to the eye. Okay, zooming out to the full image, and now we're at the high resolution image, which looks a lot better. Alright, we've talked about a few topics here. Let's summarize. First, we defined raster and said that it consists of pixels. We went through a few use cases such as desktop backgrounds, screenshots, digital pictures, etc. We talked about some of the formats that you'll see raster images in. Then we talked about the pros and cons. And finally, we demonstrated resolution and how a higher resolution image is better than a lower resolution image. At this point, you might be wondering, why are we talking about raster images? I thought this course was about font awesome. Well, it's actually important to understand there are two groups of digital image formats. This will help you understand what's happening in the background when you use these font icon libraries. All right, nice work. We'll see you in the next lecture.